Hey crew, how's this lockdown going for you in your part of the world? I'm not enjoying it here, I'll be honest. I haven't been in the water since early March when I got over to New Zealand, and I've been going a little bit stir crazy, battling through some uni, work, overtime, just family stuff, and still trying to power through the podcast, but definitely missing the water. And I hope you guys are doing all right wherever you are in the world. Today's episode's pretty cool. We've got Valentine Thomas. She's a trained lawyer turned 170-foot freediver. She's author, chef, speaker, and a sustainable seafood advocate. She's getting around the world doing all sorts of things. Today, we chat about making a living spearfishing, and we get into some controversy, which I quite like sometimes. So we talk about sustainable fishing practices, and Valentine was cool enough to join me. And today's episode, very cool. Couple of quick shout outs. Jordan McComb. He says, love the podcast, keep up the good work. In honor of your love of starting ethics shit shows, I thought I'd link you up to this. He sent me an ABC radio big ideas thing, and a really interesting interview and some food for thought for later. So thanks for that, Jordan. Good inspiration, mate. Hey, also catching up through the 99 Tips to Get Better at Spearfishing Audible reviews. I haven't had a look at them for a while, so quick catch up. You can, if you do want to get 99 tips to get better at spearfishing for free, go to noobspearo.com/audible, and you can get the book for free. Just sign up for 30 days. It's a free trial of Audible service. I use it all the time. I get a book choice every month. I quite like it. But anyway, if you do like podcasts, you're probably going to like Audible. This guy says, who is it? Oh, he's anonymous. He says, yeah, mad. Amazing, must listen if you're getting into spearfishing, already applied some of these tips and have come home with fish because of them. Thanks, guys. Another anonymous says, great starter book with some more advanced info. Very easy to follow. Wish I'd read this book when I first started spearfishing. And pure gold. Lots of tips that help me perform better in the Gulf of Mexico, but will be good for anywhere in the world, being that it's a collective of tips from around the world. That was from Rachel. Micah says, practical advice for Spearo despite location. I really enjoyed listening to this. As a Spearo for about a year now, most of this information I already knew or had been applying in my life. Yet I find when I dive, I think of things that I have heard, usually music, to help keep me relaxed. Now, after listening to this 3 times already, I can review this information in my head while diving. So that's some pretty cool reviews. Thanks for that, guys. So yeah, check it out, noobspearo.com/audible. Guys, if you hang around to the back end of the episode, I've got a very special part. It's an audio show produced about a blackout over there in Florida. It's produced by the guys at Sync Phase, and it's a really well produced bit of audio, and it gives you some really cool commentary around what happens in the event of a blackout and what you can do about it. They dealt with it really well. I don't want to give it all away, but definitely hang around to the back end of this episode and listen into that bit of episode audio from the Sync Phase crew. And I'll link them up in the show notes today as well. So if you go to noobspearo.com/Valentine2, I'll have that linked up there for you guys. Also, following that, I've got a little bit of a spear gun safety chat. It's a funny story from one of our old buddies and previous guests on the show, Dan Walsh, and really cool little bit of insight there from him. So, hey, long intro. Let's get into it. Valentine Thomas, Part 2. This special episode of the Noob Spearo podcast is brought to you by spearfishing.com.au. Long-time partners of the Noob Spearo podcast, spearfishing.com.au have a listener deal. Use the code NoobSpearo to save $20 on every purchase over $200. Thanks for supporting the Noob Spearo podcast and shopping with spearfishing.com.au. Kill shot spear guns, timber guns made in the USA. Simple, effective, dependable, made in the Florida Keys by Ed Martin. These spear guns are an absolute work of art. Check them out at killshotspearguns.com. And hey, I've got a special for you, $30 off. Use the code NOOB. That's just NOOB, N-O-O-B. For a limited time only, save $30 on any spear gun at Killshot Spear Guns. Save $30 on any spear gun. Check it out. G'day, Noob Spearo community. Welcome back to the podcast. We're having an old guest, although she's not that old, but she's made her triumphant return to the podcast. I think it's been like 5 years since we chatted. Valentine, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Jeepers, a lot's happened in 5 years. I've followed along on your adventures on Instagram. You've gone from Joe Rogan to being interviewed by some huge magazines and publications. How's that journey been for you?
It's definitely been hard, quite fun. I mean, last time we spoke, I was still living in London, and I was still pretty new to spearfishing. So definitely a lot happens in between.
I saw you were at like the Fisheries Symposium in Rome, run for increasing sort of sustainability practices across fisheries more broadly at an international level. So you've sort of mixed and mashed. You've gone from Joe Rogan podcast to kind of these high end academic summits. So it must have been very interesting, some of the stuff you've learned.
Yes, definitely. And what happened is, when I started spearfishing and spending a lot of time in the ocean, I tried to change my consumption habit, and I was looking for information online and everywhere, and I was realizing there's nothing. It's really, really hard for the public to get access to what's going on in the ocean. So I just started reading a lot and basically sharing that information, and just became, I guess, passionate by it. And now it's what I like doing the most now.
Cool. One thing I see you doing a bit lately is hanging out in restaurants, particularly seafood restaurants. And I think one of the most powerful ways that influencers can change things is by influencing buying habits of people and picking fish in season, and eating fish that aren't necessarily seen as hugely popular and things like that. Is that something that you've seen as well?
Yeah. So all of those events that I'm organizing, it's because it's easy to complain on social media and use your platform just to whine, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's taking concrete steps and try to make the world and the ocean a better place. It sounds cheesy, but it's and I just thought that chef and restaurants are also their share in what they should be doing, and like you said, is to cook species that I've never heard of before, so that way they vary their diet, maybe make better decisions, and it has a positive impact on the ocean. So win-win, and I make money out of it.
Yeah, nice. Well, that's cool how you're tying all that together. So, I mean, in terms of like you on a personal level, what's changed in your life circumstances since we first got up? So last time you were sort of just leaving the investment scene, and but you were still living in London, and you were beginning to travel spearfishing. Where are you living now? And take us on a few of those the journeys that you've been on in 5 years.
I live in Florida now.
Oh, okay.
I quit London about 3.5 years ago. I think when we spoke, I just started my transition of trying to change life, I guess, if that makes sense. And I didn't really had a plan. All I knew is that I like spearfishing, I really like food, and I was trying to do something that's related to both of those. And London is not really a city where you save money. So when I decided to quit everything, I moved to Florida with not that much savings, and it took me probably about 2.5 months before I had nothing left. And then
another expensive place to live.
No, exactly. So I was in Florida. I was living in my car. I could barely feed myself, and I was like, okay, shit, like this isn't working. Like I need to get a plan. I need to start working on what I'm gonna do. And I started working really hard at a company and tried to make a living out of this, and it ended up working. But the beginning was a little reality check, that's for sure. Especially after London, living in a nice apartment and having a nicer car. Passing that from living in my car, that was a little bit of a shock.
Yeah. So you've had some big ups and some big downs. I've got to say I admire your bold choice to do it anyway. During some of those low moments, what kept you going?
It was at that point that my values were changing, and I was a completely different person 10 years ago. I always been super career orientated. I studied law, I had a master in law, and I was working in a hedge fund in London, and it was my life goal was just to have a big career, and I just didn't think that money and passion could ever go together. And so when I just changed everything completely, I was realizing that, well, actually, I would much rather do something that I like, and this is it's kind of a life and a job that I didn't know was possible. So even though I was making barely any money, I was having the time of my life, and I had something that a lot of people didn't have, and that's freedom.
Cool. I didn't realize you're living in Florida now. So where are you living now? What's sort of your day-to-day work look like?
I don't have a day-to-day, which is what I really like. Right now, I'm in my hometown. I'm in Montreal. I published a book in Montreal in April. So now I'm doing, for January and February, I'm doing a conference tour all over the province, and doing a bunch of, kind of a media and conference tour around here.
Tell us a little bit about this cookbook. So I understand it's a fish cookbook, but at this stage it's only in French.
It is only in French, sadly, but the images are pretty.
Yeah. That'll be an effort getting it translated over to English for the rest of us, I guess. So you also managed to get yourself on the Joe Rogan podcast, which is something I listen to all the time. I think a lot of guys that like podcasts listen to Joe Rogan. How did that come about?
It was I kind of harassed him into it. It was I was with a friend of mine, and I was asking for podcast suggestions, and he suggested me Joe Rogan. And when I found him on Instagram, I saw he was following me. So I reached out and I asked him if he wanted to chat about spearfishing. And he said, yeah, sure. Like, could you do that date? Or I think it was like the 17th of August. And in my head, I was like, even if I'm getting married, I'm canceling that shit. I'm going for sure.
That's cool.
Then I haven't heard from him and a while after that, and like I kept pushing, and then at some point he gave me the address, and it was happening, and I finally understood what happened. Is he told me after that, he said, oh, like, when I booked your podcast, a lot of people were telling me that I shouldn't have you on because you're probably just a fish bimbo, something like that. But he said that he was really happy that I went on a podcast and he was super interesting and everything. So there's a lot of still of preconceived ideas in the spearfishing industry, especially towards women. So
it's hard. It's hard to be a good-looking woman and on Instagram and across these platforms and do spearfishing. It's like you kind of just get looked down on as if like, oh, you're not really a real Spearo. You're just a person who plays a game on Instagram to get followers or something. Is that kind of one of the attitudes you've confronted?
I mean, it's a double-edged sword too. Like, of course I got opportunities before because I was a woman, but every time I achieve something, it's of course there's a lot of people that are going to ask questions and thinking that what I do is not true and all of that. But I'm 70-foot diver, and my hunting depth is about 30 meters, so I can catch pretty much everything I want if it passes in front of me.
I've seen some of your spearfishing progress over the years, and you've done some phenomenal diving. You've been to some amazing places and dived with some amazing people as well. You've got to feel pretty fortunate having done that. What's some of the memorable dives you've done in the recent year or two?
That's actually the really sad thing about, I mean, it's a sad thing and it's not at the same time. I don't get to dive anymore too much. I work a lot, so it's I haven't been in a spearfishing trip in a while, which is kind of why I decided to base myself in Tampa on the Gulf side of Florida, because it's really fishy, and every time I go home, I just get to go out and fill the freezer and have a good time.
Yeah, nice.
But my biggest no, actually that's not true. I went to Baja in Mexico last year, and I got a Marlin. That was kind of fun.
Wow, tell us about that. Where were you off Mexico?
I was in Cabo.
Who were you out with, and how did this special fish come about?
I was with a guy. His name is what is his Instagram name is Spearfishing Baja. He's actually from Montreal too, so that's good. And the first thing I did when I got one is to send a text to Nikki Watts because I know she got one.
Yeah, yeah, she's an absolute character. It was a good. I had her on the podcast a little while ago. She shot a couple of big ones.
Yeah, she did. That's amazing. And I was just so happy. I just called her. I was like, hey, I got one too. So basically, it was a long day. I just spent 10 hours in the water. Didn't see anything. And I looked at the guy and I told him, look, like this is the last, like just throw the last pieces of chum in the water and like it's beer time, like screw this shit. And we throw the last pieces and the Marlin just shows up. So I'm like, oh. So I take a deep dive and then of course he fucks off. So I'm like, crap. And I'm just waiting and I'm waiting and I'm kind of turning my head the other way and he turned around to check me out. And I was like, yes. So he gave me a broad shot at it was maybe 3 meters away. So it was kind of really close to me. And I decided to shoot him mid body. So of course I only had a 130. So it's not like I had a really huge gun. I only had a one float on it. So he took off. I rushed back to the surface. I bear hugs my buoy and yelling in the boat to bring me another one. I just didn't want it to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And they dragged me for about an hour and a half.
Wow.
And until I could just started to actually just pull him up through the tuna clip. And it took me about 6-7 times because every time he was seeing me, he kept diving back down. And then the last time he was tired enough, so he stopped moving, and I could give him a second shot.
How big was it? What species of marlin too?
It's a black marlin.
And how many kilos or pounds was it?
I didn't weigh it.
Did you have a guess on it?
I'm gonna guess probably. Wait, I have a guess in pounds. So I'm gonna need to.
Yeah, give me in pounds. Pounds is fine.
Probably 350 pounds.
Wow. That's a huge fish. No wonder the thing towed you for an hour and a half. Wow.
It was very something. I remember from the fishing spot all the way to the marina, I didn't say a single word. I was just staring at a fish and completely disbelieved that I actually shot that.
So this thing's towed you along. What direct did it tow you in just one direction, or did it end up doing a kind of like a big circle?
I don't even know. I was just
you were just hanging on for dear life.
I was hanging on to my buoy thinking, like, I just hope it doesn't spear me back.
Yeah. So it didn't sound though. It didn't go down deep. And when you put the second shot in it, was it a stone shot?
Yes. The second shot was a stone shot, and then what I did is I went back to the boat and I bled it in the water.
Yeah, cool. And what's the eating quality like on a fish like that? Was it amazing, or was it good or average, or?
It's kind of a tough meat, but the biggest problem with a marlin is the mercury level. It's really, really high. So It's not something that you want to eat in a very high quantity. Okay. So I left most of the fish in Mexico. Then I went and I ended up flying back to Florida with about 20 kilos of it.
Okay.
And I went to a grocery store and I did an Instagram giveaway for people who wanted to come say hi, grab a piece.
That's a cool idea. I like that. And so people just showed up somewhere and met you there and grabbed a kilo or something.
Yes, exactly. I gave like a couple of steaks for people. There's like 150 people that actually showed up. So,
so someone missed out. Oh well, that's pretty cool. Cool. So that sounds like a pretty cool adventure. I guess with the work getting thicker and faster, it's slowed down your spearing a bit, which I can relate to. It just seems to be like part and parcel of getting older too. Like you just find work starts taking over everything. In terms of projects, what are you working on now that's sort of close to your heart?
So I have one big project that I'm really excited about, and I'm working on an app, and a phone app.
Okay. So
people can have access to very straightforward and easy information when it comes to sustainability of seafood. And the only thing that's available in the market right now is when it comes to the population of a certain fish. But we all know that a species can be endangered in Australia, and it cannot be in something as close as New Zealand. So it's everything has to be divided and geographic locations, and we need to take into consideration a lot of other factors also. So this app is going to be super interactive and just about giving consumer with better information.
Yeah, nice. I think this is just my sort of take on it, but a lot of the problems seem to be there's no consistency with fish labeling, seafood labeling. You know, if fish comes from certain countries, there's not a lot of information accompanying it with regards to where it come from and how it was caught and how that fishery is managed in general. And a lot of it just seems this piecemeal approach because fisheries are often managed on a country-by-country basis. Is that kind of some of the things you're seeing?
Yes, definitely. When I realized that there was no information out there, I started reading a lot about it, and that's when I started going to conventions and actually tried to educate myself properly on the subject. And I read a shit ton of scientific reports on it, and there's so much information. Everything is a gray zone. Everything is that have different opinions on it. There's a lot of lobbyists too when it comes to commercial fisheries, and it's a complicated topic. So
Yeah, and there's a lot of virtue signalers and loud vocal people on social media that have lots of opinions about everything, but often they don't really have a great foundation of knowledge. And then there does seem to be a group within sort of green lobbies that are anti all fishing, and they seem to be quite anti people in general. Do you see that? I mean, how do you look at all of the parties involved in this? Because you got commercial guys that are trying to feed their families, you got recreational line fishermen, spear fishermen, and then you've got seafood companies that are trying to profit from it, and then you've got just everyone else, and everyone wants to climb up on their soapbox and commentate on it. It seems like a very complex issue.
I'm going to be direct about it. It's a shit show. There's no other way to describe it. I was at a conference a few months ago, and I met Paul Watson, the guy from Sea Shepherd. And when he found out that I was spearfishing, he literally looked at me like I was the lowest human being he ever seen in his entire life. And I was really unhappy about it, and I was very direct with him about it. I was like, it's just like, I respect your point of view, but on a certain level, if you're just closing yourself to people that have the same goal as you, which is ocean conservation, like you're shooting yourself in the foot by doing that. It's you calling us murderers and horrible people, and you're not open to anything that is not exactly your vision in the world, and that it doesn't help. It just doesn't freaking help.
I think Sea Shepherd's done some honourable stuff in the past, but they're quite widely disliked by a lot of spearfishing people, I think, because of their, I don't know, they've taken dim stances on recreational fishing in a lot of different ways. And that sort of that antagonistic attitude towards conservation and conservationists, like in the form of fishermen, it doesn't seem to be beneficial for anyone.
No, it's like to be an extremist on anything that doesn't work. And it's you reach a stage where nobody wants to listen to you anymore.
Just the same dickheads that have always listened to you. And I don't mean dickheads in the fact that they're all dickheads or whatever. I mean that, like you get this little band of followers, and they follow you around like a herd, but you're not influencing anyone but them. And there's a word for it. But we get these little internal groups of people. They believe in all the same stuff we do, and we go away and we don't talk to anyone else. It doesn't seem to be solving any of the problems.
No, and also it's easy again. It's everybody has an opinion. That's the easiest thing in the world to have, but it's when it comes to actually taking actions that's when it's different. I talked about a little while ago on pro-sign fishing, like the big commercial nets. And I got a lot of messages of people telling me, but how dare you talking about net fishing, commercial net fishing, like you're a horrible person. And I was like, dude, like you need to understand we're almost 8 billion in the planet. If you don't talk about disturbing subjects that are solutions that are actually realistic and viable, then we're going nowhere with it.
So let's get into some specifics. So a lot of these fisheries are managed like on a species by species basis within a given geographical area. They have a quota system, and then this is kind of my basic understanding, and this is in countries where fisheries are well managed. And then sort of like that quota, that maybe there's thousands of kilos. Those licenses are leased or rented to various commercial fishing operations. Is that kind of correct?
Yes. I mean, quotas are a good thing, and like everything, there's a downside to it. It's quotas because a lot of the time, because they don't want to get fined, or they just don't want to take space and the boats that wouldn't be for species that are not expensive in the market. What they do is when they fish and they pull out the net, by example, then they're realizing that, we're over our quota, or we're not allowed to catch a fish. And what they do, they release everything back to the ocean dead. So the food waste gets really, really big.
Yeah, I read one of your Instagram posts. It says like Fisheries are discarding and wasting around 10 billion pounds, and that was a conservative estimate, you said. I thought that was a horrendous figure.
It is pretty bad, but it is what it is, and it's trying to find a way to have new fishing techniques, and it's $1 billion industry, so we're kind of fighting against very, very big people. So in Montreal, they realized that they made a study last year, and they realized that 61% of the fish was mislabeled. 61.
I believe that even across all of the developed countries, I think fish labeling is terrible.
So my friend works at a university and is a professor there, and he's been studying this for about 12 years, and he got death threats by people telling him to stop looking into this and stop talking about it.
Yeah, wow. Crazy. So what is the industry's biggest problem with labeling fish and other types of seafood correctly?
It's because, seafood is the most traded commodity in the world, more than coffee, more than sugar. So, and it goes in between a lot of hands when you think about it. So let's say a tuna or a skipjack that's going to be fish in the Pacific, then it's going to be filleted in China, then they're going to process it in the Philippines, they're going to can it in India, and then they're going to ship to the US, they're going to get labeled, they're going to get sold to the market through a distributor, and then through a grocery store, and then through your house. So during that whole process, it was into the hands of 10 different people, 10 different companies, and then it leaves cracks into the system for illegal fishing, and just when there's no skin on the fish, you can say it's anything.
Yeah. So that whole supply chain, all of those different steps of processing and handing it on, that confuses things and that contributes to the mismanagement of it as well. Is that kind of what you're saying? Yeah,
it's exactly. And that's why traceability is very important. So you know exactly where your fish was caught and on which boat. Technology is very good for that now.
Yeah, it seems that we seem to be getting better at tracing where stuff comes from, and even so they're starting to do stuff in Australia now where you can find out the farm where something, some beef that you're eating or something was caught, raised and butchered and all the rest of it. And I think that increasing transparency is awesome because especially a lot of people are vegetarians now or vegans or whatever, and you can kind of understand it from an ethical point of view. I mean, the beautiful thing about spearfishing is we're kind of reconnecting with the whole process, and people that are like 8 steps removed from their food could definitely do with learning a little bit about where it all comes from, I guess. So how do the people you talk with, how do they suggest that we increase this traceability idea with seafood?
It's really hard, but right now the biggest, most efficient way is to trust Ecolabels. It's just the only way on the market right now. It's not ideal.
Ecolabels, no. Is that a third party company that? Okay.
It's like the MSC, Oceanwise, Greenpeace, and WWF have a few. So it's the only thing we can do right now is trust. But everybody within the food supply has a job to do to change the situation. Consumers have a job, fisheries have a job, governments have a job, restaurants have a job. We all have a little share to do in order to actually make a real difference. And a lot of people are asking me what they can do on a daily basis to make a difference. And my answer is always just vary what you do. It's, like I have a freezer full of fish, but I'm still eating fish only twice a week. And then I eat something else. And it's just about, if you're vegan, but you eat avocado 3 times a day, then you're still part of the problem.
Yeah. And like a lot of the factory farming stuff kills more wildlife than just eating meat would. There's some compelling arguments for that as well. I recently just bought a book by John NILAND. He owns a shop in Sydney, I think, called The Fish Butchery. And this cookbook is beautiful, but sort of like the first couple of chapters are really good reading just about sort of some of the themes you're talking about today, like varying the fish you eat and like eating stuff that's in season. And like a lot of the problems a lot of people seem to have with seafood is just not understanding how to cook it correctly. So we sometimes we jump to assumptions that that fish is shit or whatever, but it's more just because we don't know how to cook it. Is that something you agree with?
I mean, I've been cooking since I'm 4. Like cooking is the biggest thing in my life, and it's actually what got me into spearfishing. It's the fish, is the cooking part of it. And I bought his book, and I thought it was a really good read. The only thing about it that was a little bit hard for me is that the recipes are kind of hard to make.
Oh, they're 100%. They're super hard. I think the recipes in it are crazy. I lent it to my mate, and he's like a bit of a culinary whiz, and he was a bit overwhelmed. But he said like some of the ideas in this sort of the central tenets of the book, he can use in other things as well. And I'm starting to see what he means, like thinking about fish in terms of like, oh, this is that kind of meat, so I need to cook it in this kind of way. Because like a lot of us just whack the fillets off and want to fry everything, and it's just one method. It doesn't work for all the species. So, but just learning how to cook the right fish in the right way seems to be a big theme of the book. So that's kind of why I like it.
Yeah, Nick, but this is what was the concept behind my cookbook, because everything was below 8 ingredients and everything was very simple.
Nice.
I share a lot of stuff too on my I have an Instagram cooking page too, and it's just about the simple little thing that you can do at home, either with the waste but like that guy he gave me Josh NILAND, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. He gave me the idea of cooking an entire tail of a fish. I thought that was a brilliant idea, and I didn't do it his way because it was like 175 ingredients. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that. But there's a lot of great ideas in this book.
Yeah. That's kind of what I think too. Like he's just like at a really high end of preparing fish and seafood and stuff. But some of the ideas we can sort of translate into our own stuff. I'm stoked you've read the same book, so that's cool. So 8 ingredients per recipe in your book. How long are we talking preparation time, sort of, for most of them?
Everything is quick, and it's just, again, I get asked a lot, what's the best way to cook fish, and what's the best thing to serve fish with? It's olive oil and lemon. It can be really, really simple. Right before, so I did a Christmas dinner at my house right before the holidays. I went fishing with my roommates, and we got very nice sized groupers. And for everybody, I kept the heads and the collars, and I cooked that on the barbecue. And I made fish head tacos. So everybody could like pick to the head, but the heads are pretty big, and we made tacos with it. And it's actually better than the fillets.
Yeah. I agree. The cheek meat in particular is like some of my favorite part of a fish. But the collars, like all of it. There's heaps of good stuff in the head.
It's fantastic, and this is what it's all about. Again, I showed that to a bunch of people that are probably gonna stop throwing the heads again, and it's not about sharing things with people. And in April, I decided to make a barbecue at my house. I made it open and invite on Instagram.
Okay.
Want to come eat?
That's crazy. It just seems crazy.
Most people thought I was actually insane. They were scared that, but what if you get a bunch of weirdos and crazy people? And first of all, I live in Florida, so I'm pretty sure my roommate has guns somewhere. But no, it's about like 45 people showed up, and it was one of the coolest evenings of my life, actually. It was fantastic. I got to chat people about life and sustainability and a bunch of different things, and I'm definitely going to do it again.
Yeah, cool. It's not all gloom and doom with fish and fisheries in general. Like, I really like how spearfishermen, I think, have played a big part in it as well. It's the invasive lionfish in the part of the world you're living in. They've managed to create a lot of local demand for it in restaurants and stuff. Do you know much about that, and how did that all sort of happen? It
was man-induced. There are 2 legends, I guess, on how it happened. The first one was, they said that it was leaked from the Atlantis Aquarium in Nassau and the Bahamas. And the only one, the other one is that it probably came through bilge clump coming from the Red Sea, which it's not invasive. And the problem with the lionfish is that it eats 5 times its body weight per day, and it lays hundreds of thousands of eggs every few days. So they're very invasive, and they eat everything in sight. So they can't destroy a reef within 3 to 5 years because they eat all the eggs and all the small fish around.
So, but like what I'm hearing is there's a huge sort of grassroots movement now where everyone's eating them, and so it's created this demand for those fish. So now people are commercially harvesting them, and it's helping to control the numbers. Is that what's happening, or is that just am I looking at it with naivety?
It is no. I mean, it's true that restaurants start getting excited about it, as they should, because it's one of the best fish I ever had. It's fantastic. And but there are a lot of them, and let's say like in areas like Florida, when there's a lot of tournaments around lionfish and all of that, then there is a chance. And the Caribbean, when it's so scattered, it's not what they did, as they just went deeper. It's going to be a hard one to tackle.
Okay, cool. But I guess having that sort of that demand and that awareness in the community that, oh, hey, these fish are invasive and they taste really good, you've inflated that demand permanently. So now there's this incentive in the fisheries industry itself to fish for large numbers of them, which will help control the numbers better than any other control measure that is currently in existence for them.
No, exactly. I mean, it's also when it comes to all of that anyways, you have to change the demand and the offer. And where the offer consumers, and then fish and restaurants and groceries are where the demand and they're the offer. So it's everybody has to do their share and this.
Upgrading to composite or carbon fiber spearfishing fins is a huge step in your spearfishing journey, and you want to make a smart investment. So I'm going to suggest investing your moolah in penetrator fins. These fins have got long-lasting performance. They've got a warranty that outperforms anything else in the industry. Check them out at penetratorfins.com. Their before and after sales service is absolutely phenomenal. These fins are being worn by champions all over the world. Check them out at penetratorfins.com. For a limited time only, use the code Spearo to save $25 on any purchase of composite or carbon fiber fins. Check them out, penetratorfins.com. Spearing Magazine, possibly the world's best spearfishing publication. It's a spearing mag for Spearos by Spearos. Part of the reason I like Spearing Magazine so much is because there's crazy stories from Spearos just like you, from all around the world, and it's what makes Spearing Magazine such a special publication. If you go to spearingmagazine.com, check out the article submissions page. There's a full guide to how to submit an article, but I would encourage you to do so because I want to read about your adventures and inspire everyone else to take on their next spearfishing adventure. That's at spearingmagazine.com. All right, wanted to check a little bit with you about some other nefarious sort of practices for fishing in general. One of the other things I always sort of grew up hearing about was fishing trawlers and boats coming in very close to the coast of New Zealand and fishing inside of the national waters, but they do it overnight and then they get out beyond the international waters during the daylight hours. Is that something that happens a lot?
Yes, it happens a lot, and we think that it happens only from Japan and China and Russia, but it's everybody. It's the Spanish, it's the Portuguese, it's the Americans, it's the Canadian. It's a really, really big problem. Like, America protects its coast very, 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 very well. It's fishy all around the U.S. It's the reefs are super healthy. Everything is healthy. But then they go to third world countries and they start raiding everything. So it's...
Yeah, this is part of my problem with Australia. It's like they've continued to tighten up the laws here and lower the quotas and stuff, and there's a good argument for it all. And then like they're trying to shut down parts of the coast, particularly in New South Wales. There's a big push in the last year to shut down big areas and create national parks, and then further reduce fishing opportunities for recreational fishermen. And then... basically, we have to import more fish from overseas. And a lot of them are coming from these third world countries where they don't even manage their fisheries at all. It just seems sort of like a little bit cheeky. It's like, well, we look after our own shit, but we're going to go and rob someone else. And I don't think it's deliberate, but that's sort of the way I see it.
No, it definitely. It's like you're going to take care of your lawn and your grass in front of your house, but then you're going to pee on your neighbors. That's not that great. So it's... Yeah,
it's all well and good. Like 50% of the seafood that your country consumes comes from your own country, and then 50% comes from other countries. But a lot of that's mislabeled. We don't know where it came from. Like you mentioned earlier, there's no traceability. They don't have labeling consistency. It's just crazy. Is there any sort of whispers to create an international body that will help govern fisheries?
But that's what the Ecolabels are kind of doing, but they're not nonprofits. So it's Uh, they really do a good job. Like, I'd rather buy a piece of fish that's certified than a piece of fish that's not certified. It's like, I guess it's better than nothing. As bad as it sounds, Ecolabels are the best of the shit available out there.
Okay, cool. There's progress happening. We are moving forward. It's just it's a shit fight at the moment. It must be frustrating looking at it every day.
It is. It really is. And you kind of feel kind of hopeless about it. So it's about finding little projects and stick to them, because if you tackling the entire fishing industry, then I'm just gonna get discouraged, and I'm not gonna go anywhere. But other than important fish that you mentioned earlier, most of it is species that people are kind of not addicted to, but they only focus on those ones, which is salmons and then cod and tuna, and that's kind of why, you even in Australia, you have a lot of fantastic species that just a lot of public just don't know about. Yeah,
and everyone's just eating tinned tuna, and half the time we don't even know where the crap comes from. And the seafood labeling is getting better here, I will admit it, but it's still a long way from where we'd want it to be. I think one of the hardest things is influencing the market, like the average consumer, about what fish is good, and encouraging people to eat locally and local species and eat it cooked the right way instead of just buying tuna in a can.
No, exactly, and it's doing it differently too. It's to just when you go to a grocery store, you just try different species, and that. Just only that goes a really long way.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, spearfishing people are kind of uniquely situated, but we're guilty of it too. Like we'll have those, those go-to species that we're always going to have, and then we just knock the fillets off, and we're happy with that, and we just cook them the same way every time, and we don't apply a lot of imagination. It can't be said of all spearfishing people, but there are a lot of us that are guilty of it, and I've been guilty of it myself. I guess another thing, a shining light on the horizon for fishing and seafood in general is aquaculture and fish farming. Those practices seem to be getting better and smarter and stuff every year. What's your take on that industry?
The aquaculture is actually, it can be a really good solution when it's done right. And this is when this is where the key point is when it's done right, because it can create a lot of pollution. It can create a lot of contamination. It can be an environmental disaster, aquaculture. So you just have to make sure that it's done in a responsible way. And there's a lot of species that are ideal for farming, and the life condition in the wild and in the farming can be exactly the same. But like salmon is not a very good example of that. Some of them do it right, and they're finding a way to make it responsible. But salmon is a carnivore fish, so you still need to overfish in the ocean in order to feed it.
Oh, okay. Okay, so the food that they're giving them is what dead like smaller organisms and stuff from the ocean. Okay.
Yeah, and then news that there was something recently, I can't remember what it was, when there was something like 700 salmon escaped from a farm, and this is going to create contamination. Those fish are full of chemicals, and they can be rotten on the side. It's
yeah. There's an increase in disease with them, particularly. Like I've looked at a little bit. Like by no means do I know much about any of this stuff, to be honest. But I try to keep up with it a little bit just so I can ask good questions. But I'm always sort of on the lookout to learn more. But one of the things I sort of read was like with enclosed waterways, with these big enclosed fish nets that they farm these things in. If they do it in enclosed water, they're like highly prone to catching diseases, and also their waste can pollute like the waters that their net is lying in. Is that another thing that you've sort of heard much about?
Yes, definitely. And I saw horrific videos of fish living in their own feces and the overcrowded nets, and it can be outrageous. But again, there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. And same thing as there's a right way to grow avocados and there's wrong ways to grow avocados. You can be a shitty meat eater, and you can be a shitty vegan in life. You can be a shitty everything, but everything too.
Yeah, it's true. Like, and a lot of us, like, it's like we want to make good food choices and stuff, but it's like we're neither farmers nor full-time fishing people. And so we don't really even understand how to make those good choices. Like a lot of the farm stuff is monocrops that are, and they just have the same product running through the same land year after year, and then they've got to continue to add different nutrients and stuff to the soil to get it to continue to produce crops. And I guess we're doing the same thing in the ocean now because we're trying to feed huge amounts of people, which is understandable, but then we've got to kind of try and learn how to do it in the right way. So it's a tough challenge.
Yes, and even then, I mean, like it's there is a lot of people to feed in the world, but half of them are struggling to feed themselves anyways, but we're still overfishing the ocean, so there's issues somewhere.
Yeah, and then it's like in the Western world we're like really tightly starting to learn how to tightly manage our own fisheries and stuff, and then you look in poorer countries and they don't even have any management practices, or the management practices there are not enforced. So it's tough because we've sort of got these uneven scales. So, yeah.
Agreed.
I read an interesting thing you posted too about harvesters, or sort of like dragging the bottom for oysters and stuff. That there was a study that came out that might possibly suggest that there's benefit for sometimes for that kind of form of fishing.
Yes. So according to a few reports that I read, when it's a moving bottom, such as gravel or sand or even mud, that to have bottom trawlers are actually beneficial for this because it's kind of moving the ecosystems around. And I was really, really surprised when I read that. And I contacted a friend of mine who works in fisheries, and I was like, is that accurate information? And he said yes. And I was... again, it's definitely not black and white, and it's about opening our minds to different facts that are not always what we think they are, and we cannot deal with the food searching issue with emotions. It's just impossible because if we do, then we're not going to find solutions.
I saw a post a little while ago on a spearfishing page in the Northern Hemisphere, and these Spearos were protesting this huge trawler coming into their area, and a lot of guys got quite emotional about it, and I can kind of understand it. Like you're seeing this huge boat comes in with these massive nets, and you're just thinking, we're allowing these people to come in here and, strip the ocean. But like from the other side of it, I thought, well, one ship you're probably better off having one ship do it rather than 45 small vessels that are all using diesel and engines and crews and all the rest of it. You've just got one vessel doing all of it. And so that's got to minimise that sort of impact on the environment. And then they're still only taking the same quota. You know what I mean? Like if it's 10,000 kilos of fish, then that's what they're taking, I'd assume. Anyway, have you seen similar things to that?
Yes, that I mean, of course you can be emotional and passionate about something. It's just like you have to be to the point where you're allowing yourself to sit down and listen to other people's opinion also. It's, like when it comes to a trawler like that, it's about every time there's a new law or anything like that, and it's happening in Quebec and Canada too, it's just about, you have to look at the data. There's a bunch of scientists, and it's their job to figure out exactly what's going on. And it's, even though it's really frustrating for you, you don't have a choice than to take a step back and read the data, read the information, and then you can make a decision about if you're against or for something. But in between, unless you can't just say like, oh, it's a bottom trawler, for sure it's bad, it's terrible, like let's throw eggs on it. It's just
It's not black and white, and you've kind of got to become informed for some of those local issues, I guess. That's what I'm hearing from you. There's a lot of forms of commercial fishing. You got I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, but purse seine netting.
Purse seine, yeah.
Can you describe some of the practices that you've become familiar with and the ones that you have since started taking maybe a dim view to and maybe a positive view to others?
It's so last year I went to the Marshall Islands. I think it's not too far from Australia, is it?
Yeah. Well, it's a couple of I think it's more than 1,000 kilometers, but let me just look it up. It's an interesting one. It is. I know what you're saying. I've seen it on the map before, but
is it the same part of the world at least?
yeah, it's in Oceania. Yeah, okay. It's not actually that far. It's probably it's off to the northeast, and we're probably looking at, where's my scale? Yeah, it's probably about right. It's about 2,000 kilometres off to the northeast of Australia. Sort of, it's closer to Papua New Guinea.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So they produce about 50% of the world's skipjack stock in the world, and a lot of the tuna. And they do a lot of percent over there. And I had a chance to go on a boat, kind of try to figure out what was going on. And it's hard to see. I'm not gonna lie. It's, to see like the amount of tuna getting caught, but there are ways to do it in a way that's better than it's being done. Like, so when you have for a tuna to be sustainably certified, you have to. Sorry, I'm finding my words in English.
That's okay.
You're not allowed to use FADs. So the fishing aggregation device, it's basically, when you have that, it's like a whole ecosystem coming to it, and there's a lot of bycatch when it comes to that. So there's ways to change it and make it better. The ocean can take much more pressure than we think it can. Way more.
That was the other thing I kind of sort of looked at. Like, there is this sustainable volume of fishing pressure that the ocean can take. And it's just like, it's a matter of just using our resources and our brains in the right way, and not just stripping out one or two particular fisheries, but kind of spreading our impact around.
Exactly. It's to pretty much every ecological problem, there are solutions. It's just about, wanting to do them at this point.
Cool. Awesome. We've talked all about fisheries and some of the stuff you've been up to. Is there anything else we didn't cover off that you really wanted to talk about, Valentine?
I don't think so.
Cool. People can come and find you. You're on Instagram. What's the cooking channel you've got on Instagram?
Oh, it's just about like sharing little recipes and fun things to do at home, and it's ways to use different parts of the fish. Cool. And everything is, again, very little ingredient, very simple, and it's about using a grill and super accessible for everybody to encourage people to eat seafood. Okay,
cool. And what's the name of that Instagram?
It's Valentine's Cooking. And if anybody wants to chat with me, send me a message. I respond to most of my messages. I like to connect with people. If I don't respond the first time, just keep harassing me. I'll answer at some point. And hoping to make my way to Australia this year.
Oh, cool. Well, if you're in Brisbane, definitely hit me up, send me an email. Love to get you out for a spear, and it'd be cool to hang out in person.
That's crazy. I forgot you were there, because I went to Brisbane for 24 hours 2 years ago on my way to New Caledonia, and I didn't know anybody.
I was probably overseas then anyway, but it's funny how we're all traveling around and intercepting each other. Another cool project you worked on that I just wanted to mention too before we just head off is the David Ochoa Aqua Verdes project. What was that documentary called?
That was Aqua Negra. It was a very interesting trip, to say the least.
Yeah. It looked like it was character building.
It was definitely character building. We had no money, no grocery stores. It was something else.
So it's Agua Negra. I think it's still available on Vimeo, but that was Cape Verde off Africa there. What was that? Did that experience change anything for you? Like living like that? Was it pretty scary?
It was, well, I kind of realized in my travel that after a week you can adapt to pretty much any living conditions, and it was the case after that. The first week I remember calling my mom and being like, I don't think I'm going to make it. This is too hard. Couldn't find wood or gas in the first week. We were eating raw fish. It was definitely not easy. And then our accommodations were social security apartments in Africa. So obviously there was no beds. We were sleeping in the floor, and it was a rough month. But then we noticed that people were welcoming us into their home, sharing their meals with us, and we discovered, I guess, kindness and a sense of community that we don't see in more developed countries. And it was very humbling of pretty much how much of assholes we are, I guess, when you think about it.
At times, I think wealth does lead to it for sure. I really like the study of contrast there. Like the people just seem really happy. There was bright and vibrant colours in that documentary. David's storytelling, I think went to another level, and I really enjoyed seeing that project. It was really cool, and it was cool you were a part of it as well.
Yeah, I've been bugging him to do a new one, but that one took about 3 years, so he's not. I don't think he's ready.
Yeah. Well, he's a cool dude. I'm looking forward to catching up with him again soon as well. So awesome, Valentine. Have you got anything else on the boil at the moment that people can come and check out? Have you got a YouTube channel? I've never seen.
No, I don't do a lot of you. I mean, I have like hours and hours of footage on my computer, but it's I haven't done anything with it. First of all, I really suck at editing, so.
Don't we all? It's a taxing one, that one. So many people have got good footage and it just sits there in a hard drive. But I get it. Well, cool. Hey, the other thing I noticed you did was a whole lot of TED Talks. So I'll try and link up some of the stuff you've been up to in today's show notes. So if people go to noobspearo.com/Valentine, there'll be a whole bunch of links and stuff, stories that you've been up to over the last few years, and that'll be cool if people want to catch up on your journey. But it's a real pleasure catching up with you again, and awesome to have you with me.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for having me again.
Cool. All right, Valentine. We'll catch you later. Guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Valentine. It was first thing in the morning there. I think she did bloody well. I really enjoy chatting about fisheries at the moment and learning a bit more about it. And cool getting her insights on how to make a living and what she's up to in the world, the big world of spearfishing as well. She's a cool character to follow. Just definitely suggest you follow her over on Instagram and check out her website as well. And hopefully that cookbook will come out in English soon, because I'm always down for a cookbook, just quietly. Let's get into this audio from the Sink Phase freediving crew. I don't want to give it away, but here it comes, the Blackout Story.
We could tell immediately that something was not right at all.
Automatically, I heard something that didn't sound right.
But I definitely remember when it happened, and then remember waking up after and just realizing that I wasn't where I previously was before I lost consciousness.
What led up to the blackout? What were you guys doing in the water? Why were you taking the particular dive? What were you trying to accomplish?
Right, so started out as a pretty rough day. We were diving about 80 feet, which is a little bit beyond my normal comfort zone. But I was feeling really good, and I'd never gotten the opportunity to really test my actual limits. We pulled up on a coop, and our first shot unfortunately hung up inside the coop with a brand new gun. First shot on that new gun as well.
By the time he blacked out, we probably made 10 or 15 dives together total, if I had to guess. I know the first dive we shot the fish, it got jammed up, and I think I made 5 more dives before he blacked out, and then I made 1 after that, and I stopped before I got to the bottom. I was a little on the uneasy side, and I just called it and said, all right, we're done, we're going to leave this here. We'll get some scuba guys to come back out here and get it for us.
How many dives had you done leading up to that one?
So between my dive buddy and I, we did about 8 dives. I took 4 of them all to the bottom at about 82 feet on the coop. But on top of that, we had 2 to 3 foot swells with a pretty spaced out interval, still getting a little bit of water in the snorkel and getting tossed around a bit. But I think that definitely contributed.
I'm so used to listening out for you guys, so when we finally looked at him, I automatically knew something was wrong. The dive before, he didn't look 100% when he came up, so this time when I looked at him, all I saw was eyes rolling back, so I knew something was wrong. He had blue-purple lips, and his face was really white, so I knew that from listening to you guys enough that meant that he was close to being hypoxic, so.
Finally kind of figure out a method, hooking him in the mouth so that you could just really swing him around those bars. So I went down on my first dive, hooked him around the mouth, started pulling on him, and he actually started to come out. As he come out, he swam up past the gaff, and since it didn't have a barb on, he just slipped off. Kind of came up about 5 feet around the structure, hooked back around, went all the way back into the coop, kind of with the shooting line on him. And by now the reel line had been cut, so you had 50-inch shaft with about 12 feet of dino just kind of hanging off of it without anything on the end. So as that fish was swimming down, you'll kind of see that I attempted, after he got off the gaff, to wrap that dino back around the gaff, tie a knot or something like that, which kind of extended my comfortable bottom time by a couple seconds. After I realized that that probably wasn't the best idea and I saw the fish swim back into the structure, I kind of just started ascending as I usually would, pulling up off the coop. Around 45 feet below the surface, I realized that was right around when I started kind of feeling those contractions, so I dumbly kind of started kicking a little bit harder.
Where at in the dive did you start feeling like you were going to have an issue?
I'd say ascending when I was about 40 feet below the surface. That's when it started to hit me that I probably needed to get back to the surface a little bit quicker than I was about at my threshold. Next thing I know, I'm waking up, and luckily my dive buddy's got his hand over my shoulder, kind of like that seatbelt rescue that everyone learns, with his hand in my armpit and just making sure that my airways were free of the water. And
thankfully the visibility was pretty good, which we don't get great visibility all the time here in the Panhandle, so that was nice. But I didn't really realize anything was going on with him until he broke the surface. Now is when we immediately, as soon as his face broke, we realized that his body was in panic mode, and I needed to get over there as fast as I could.
I mean, it was definitely a scary experience. I was shaking afterwards.
I guess what it was his body just struggling to get that breath before blacking out. And you just kind of watched his head go underwater, and I swam over as fast as I could, which it felt like eternity, and in the video it's like 2 seconds. And picked him up out of the water. And really, my goal was to just initially get him out of the water, as it was a little on the rough side, so I wanted his face very clear of the water. And as soon as his face came out of the water, it was just instant. He was back to life, breathing again. And I really didn't have to worry about the tapping on his face or anything, which, I mean, I'm glad, because the less you got to do, the better in that situation. But it was definitely something we weren't ready for, but we were.
Are some blackout drills in the future? Is that what you guys are going to be doing some more of?
Definitely the next time we go out, whether it's a spring or the Gulf, we're definitely going to do some more blackout recoveries, just to make sure we all remember everything we need to remember, just in case something ever happens.
Do you think things would have gone as well as they did if you guys weren't certified?
Definitely not. I would have had no clue what was going on. I would have thought he was shivering or something and just falling back into the water. He probably would have laid there in the water for 10-20 seconds before we swam over and got him, which definitely would not have been good. Do I think he would have died? Probably not, because it was a very minor blackout, but you never know. I'm very glad that the first step I did freediving was get certified.
Do you think you and your dive buddies being certified played a huge role in the fact that you're still here?
Absolutely. If we were not certified, I don't even know what we'd be trying to do, fumbling around trying to recover that. We wouldn't even been really watching out for a blackout. At least I would have no idea what to do aside from just grab the guy and panic, and nothing else kind of like that.
Has seeing this and experiencing this deterred you at all from wanting to get into spearfishing and freediving?
No, it hasn't. We have a good enough group here. We all listen out and look after each other. Not to say that there aren't things that we need to pay more attention to or, work on as a group. But, from the beginning, I felt like this is one of the safest groups that we've ever been associated with. So I'm not worried about it.
What did you think of that? Pretty dramatic, listening to an actual blackout, and sort of being right there, getting all that commentary, and just thinking about what can happen in the event that your mate does black out. It's one of those situations where you're super stoked that you're within arm's reach, or just a half decent, like 5 or 10 strokes away, that you can grab them, get them to the surface, pull the mask off, start blowing on their face, just talking to them, getting them to breathe. This is the realities of breath hold spearfishing. Blackouts can happen. People push it, stuff happens, and if you are pushing your diving in the least, it's so reassuring to know that a good buddy's got your back. Really happy to share that audio today from the Sync Phase crew. So if you come to today's show notes at Valentine, noobspearo.com/Valentine2, I've linked up their socials. Check out the Sync Phase crew and my buddy Todd. Those guys are killing it over there in Florida. Hey, Onwards and upwards, Dan Walsh with a funny story on spear gun safety, and it's only a shorty, so stick around and then you'll enjoy it. Here we go, Dan Walsh.
Well, Shrek, one of the stupidest things that ever happened in my career didn't happen to me, but it happened to a customer. I was the sales, marketing, and R&D manager at a company called Aquacraft based here in San Diego. We were the manufacturers of Bandito spear guns, just pretty much an over-the-counter, sold in dive shop spear guns. I got a call one day from a guy in Florida who said he had a problem with our spear gun, so I asked him what the problem was. He said, well, he shot himself in the head while he was loading it. So I asked him for more details. He said, well, I was sitting on top of the outboard motor and trying to load the gun out of the water, and the butt of the gun slipped, and somehow the gun went off, and the shaft went between his skull and his scalp. And I asked him, about any other injuries or if he was okay. And he says, yeah. I said, well, so what can I do for you? He said, well, I'd like to have you replace my mask. I said, well, why is that? He said, well, because the spear gun broke my mask. And being a dive boat captain and a scuba instructor and a safety kind of guy, I just went off in the office and expletives and telling him what a moron he was and a effing idiot and God knows everything else I could muster. Everybody on the second floor of the building sort of gathered around my office to see what all the shouting was all about. Nonetheless, when I told him there's no effing way he's going to get anything from us or anybody else, and I hung up. So I immediately wrote my notes up from the phone call, called the insurance company, and they told me, yeah, just let us take care of it from there. But we never heard from the guy. So as a result, we took a couple of our guns down in the shop. We put them on a press and put 2,000 pounds of pressure pulling against the shaft, trying to get the gun to misfire. I even took a shovel. I took a sledgehammer. I banging the crap out of the handle and the mechanism, trying to get it to misfire. Couldn't do it. It just was no way. So we really don't know what this guy actually did, but nonetheless, it never went anywhere else. Lesson learned, when I was running dive boats, if anybody showed up on our boat with a loaded spear gun from the water, we confiscated the gun. It's just too unsafe to have a loaded spear gun on a boat. That being said, currently all the bluefin tuna that are being caught or shot out here by the Spearos off Southern California over the past few months, one of the techniques is exactly to have the gun loaded and get in the water. The difference is our guy, the guy that I dealt with, he was not a Spearo. He was a guy with a spear gun and didn't know what the heck he was doing. The guys that are out here now are very experienced. The boat operators on the small charter boats that take these guys out, they have a very good program, safety protocol, and it's okay, I guess, if you're professional or at least a very highly advanced Spearo. So that was probably the stupidest thing I've had to deal with in my career to this point.
Hey guys, today's podcast is brought to you by freedivingsafety.com. It's powered by Ted Hardy from Immersion Freediving. He won an award and he decided to create something that could help the whole world, every single person wanting to get into freedive spearfishing. There's a whole bunch of foundational principles and knowledge that you can learn at freedivingsafety.com. It'll help you to catch more fish and have more fun, believe it or not. It's not just a safety course. This is practical information in there for helping you to not only manage the risk, but to have more fun and look after your mates and yourself. Check it out, freedivingsafety.com. Massive episode today, guys. Thanks for sticking around to the end and getting through it all. It was awesome. I love getting these little bits and pieces of audio and stories from our community. The Noob Spearo community is expanding every day. If you are not part of the Noob Spearo community on Facebook, then I would encourage you to join. Definitely head over to today's show notes, noobspearo.com/Valentine2. I'll have the Noob Spearo community Facebook group linked up. And as usual, Dan Walsh is a patron on patreon.com. And it's great to take it to the next level. If you love the Noob Spearo podcast, then definitely encourage you to head over to Patreon and support the show on an episode by episode basis. Every single dollar raised goes towards trips where I get to come out and dive in your part of the world, maybe come diving with you and do some interviews and just have a bit of fun and take the show on the road like I did recently with the 3 New Zealand episodes. I'd love to do a bit more of that. So patreon.com/Noob Spearo for that. Hey, awesome to have you with me today. I hope we get through this lockdown. Let's do it together, and hopefully we'll all be out and back spearing again soon. But I hope the show's keeping you fueled up on stoke. I'm out. This episode of the Noob Spearo podcast is brought to you by spearfishing.com.au. They've been on board for more than 100 episodes, and I'd love for you to shop at spearfishing.com.au. They have a price beat guarantee, hassle-free returns, flat shipping rates across Australia, and you can save $20. For every purchase over $200, if you use the code NoobSpearo, you save $20. Thanks for supporting the Noob Spearo podcast and shopping with spearfishing.com.au.